Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Note to Self. In today's episode, I'm going to be diving into something I know so many of us have felt at some point, and that is the difference between surviving in our lives and thriving in our lives. Or as I like to say, moving from survival mode into thrival mode. So this episode is especially for you if your days feel more like a to-do list rather than a life. If you're constantly on edge, hustling, exhausted, or stuck in a loop of doing what you have to do with very little energy left for what you actually want to do. So this is your sign to pause and listen because this episode is for you. This is your life and it's meant to be lived, not just gotten through. So let's dive in first to what survival mode really looks like. Survival mode isn't always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it can run on the back burner. Sometimes it looks like always being on, hyper productivity, but you still feel like you're falling behind. Guilt when you rest, feeling like you haven't earned it. That's a big one for me. Decision fatigue because everything feels like a have to. It could be low-level anxiety even when nothing is wrong. Disconnection from joy, creativity, or sensuality. Living for the weekend or the next vacation. Or a tight relationship with money, either hoarding it out of fear or overspending to escape discomfort. This can all become so normal that we forget to question it. We think, well, this is just adulting. But the truth is it's not. It's conditioning and it's optional, and you have the power to undo that conditioning. So let's next talk about the autopilot trap, because most of us learn from a young age that safety comes from doing what's expected, being productive, staying busy, or playing small. I know for myself, I feel like I was programmed with all of those. We're wired for survival, and the brain loves familiarity, even if it's limiting. I've shared this before in previous episodes, but I'll share it here again. The brain loves familiarity over what we actually want or truly desire in our lives. So it's important to recognize that these are just programs of the mind, and they can be unprogrammed like a computer. We can Control-Alt-Delete them, but sometimes it's a bit more of a process than just Control-Alt-Delete. But bring an awareness to it. Just by listening to this episode today, you are creating a transformation within yourself. So let's get back to it. When we're small, when we're young, when we're developing, we tend to adopt beliefs like, I have to work hard to deserve rest. If I'm not constantly pushing, I'll fall behind. Fulfillment is a luxury. Survival is the priority. So whether or not these are things that you've actually identified in yourself, I encourage you to think and notice if any of them resonate with you on another level. I'll repeat them again. When we are younger, we tend to adopt beliefs like, I have to work hard to deserve rest. If I'm not constantly pushing, I'll fall behind. Fulfillment is a luxury. Survival is the priority. So for myself, I can definitely say that, again, all of these were programmed to me or within me through my formative years. And it got me into different cycles of workaholism, which I've also shared a lot on this podcast, and just not giving myself the space to relax my nervous system and relax into my life, into my being. And what I've noticed, if I may share more personally, the more that I relax into being who I truly am and deciding that's enough, the more everything in my life gets better. The more my business thrives, the more my relationships thrive, the more financial abundance flows to me with ease. So just be aware. Just be consciously aware as I'm giving you these examples through this episode, and ask yourself if anything is resonating. Because we tend to fall into routines that we never questioned. An example could be wake up, coffee, work, chores, social media scroll, maybe a bit of Netflix, sleep, repeat. Autopilot becomes our identity. And soon we can't remember what lights us up because we haven't asked ourselves that in years. So let's talk about the cost of staying in survival mode. Survival mode keeps us functional, but never fulfilled. Over time, we lose our spark, we self-abandon, we push joy, play, and presence to someday. our nervous system stays in a low-level state of activation, which leads to burnout, resentment, emotional numbness, and sometimes even physical symptoms. I've seen this with clients who've built outwardly successful lives, only to realize they feel a sense of emptiness inside because they never learned how to feel safe simply being themselves. Thriving isn't about more doing, it's actually about coming home to yourself. And the more that you can come home to yourself, the more fulfilled you'll feel, and you'll naturally become next level magnetic. Everything in your life starts to become more ease-filled and starts to flow more simply, more magically, just overall ease-filled. Ease versus grind. Ease versus just pushing through to get by. So let's now talk about what Thrival actually looks like. So Thrival isn't a destination, it's a state of being. Thrival isn't a destination, it's a state of being. I repeated that because I really wanted it to sink in for you. Thrival isn't a place that you're just going to get to. The power and the activation lies in recognizing that it's about enjoying the journey. It's about thriving and creating that internally, and you'll naturally see it externally. So Thrival looks like making decisions from joy, not fear, feeling safe in your body and calm in your mind, creating space for rest, beauty, creativity, and spontaneity, living in rhythm with your nervous system, not against it, trusting life more than you control it, valuing alignment over approval, expanding capacity for pleasure, abundance, and connection. One of my clients recently moved to a new country and is in the process of launching a creative business, not because she was running from something, but because she was finally living for something. And I think this is such a beautiful example of really choosing your life in the way that you want to live it. A deep question I ask clients from time to time, especially when they begin their journeys working with me, is what do you want? What do you truly want for your life? It might seem like a very simple question, but if you let that sink in, it can be quite deep. So think about that, ponder that, perhaps journal about that after you're done listening to this podcast today. Because when you start to get in tune with what you truly want, it can be easy to then see and recognize what's no longer serving you. And that leads us into the next part of this episode, which is how to cross the bridge from surviving to thriving. So to shift out of survival mode, you don't need to change your whole life overnight, but you do need to reclaim your power of choice. So ask yourself, what am I tolerating that I no longer want to live with? And tolerating can be like having a cracked phone screen. It can be not getting off the phone when I want to get off the phone. It could be a decluttered space around you. It doesn't have to be, again, something big that shifts your life entirely overnight. Think small things around you that would actually allow for more ease to settle in your internal reality. So I'll ask you again, what am I tolerating that I no longer want to live with? The next question is, what would I do differently if I felt safe, worthy, and supported? What's one thing I could do today that would make me feel alive? And then slow down enough to listen. Or write these down in your journal and let your stream of consciousness flow through. Let your intuition present themselves. Thrival starts with presence, listening to that internal compass. Because you don't hustle your way into ease, as much as we might have been sold that through movies and whatnot, of like, we must go through the struggle, the initiation period. I was actually having a session with a client today where we're talking about the collective consciousness around creatives that tends to be, oh, it's a rite of passage to struggle before you hopefully get your big break. So I encourage you to question these things, right? You don't need to hustle your way into ease. You can actually create that ease internally. You actually relax your way into alignment, even though it feels so counterintuitive to the stories that were sold. The truth is that when you begin to relax even more in your nervous system and choose to make decisions from a place of alignment, what actually truly feels good to you, you remember who you are underneath all the noise. And that is when you become so incredibly powerful and magnetic to the things that you truly desire for your life. So here are 5 tangible practices to move into Thrival. 1, track your energy, not your time. Notice what drains you versus what nourishes you. And an action step that you can take after this podcast today is to just brain dump all the things that you recognize drain your energy, or create a notepad section in your phone that encourages you to recognize, build a chart of the things that drain and the things that nourish you. And the more and more that you bring attention to them, the more and more likely you're going to keep choosing the things that nourish you and start to release the things that drain you. So the second practice is integrate nervous system resets. Breath work, yin yoga, walks in nature, time unplugged or away from your phone. These rewire your baseline. Especially being in nature, there is something so powerful about nature. We are nature, but nature naturally starts to regulate us. Have you ever noticed if maybe you go out to a cottage for a weekend, or you go camping, or you spend some time up in the mountains, that you actually just start to slow down and feel more peaceful? That's because your nervous system starts to co-regulate with nature itself. So if ever you're feeling like the survival mode is pulsing through my system, I encourage you to take an action of simply going for a walk. People talk about this, but I'm serious. Like, take off your shoes, your socks, and walk barefoot. It's summer at the time that I'm recording this episode, so, it's more acceptable to do that, especially if you're Canadian and you're not stepping outside in the snow. But you can also just go sit in a park and read a book, or listen to a podcast, or take a task or something that you were going to do at home outside. So the next practice is create space for fun. Not productivity disguised as fun. I'm talking real joy, like going thrifting, going dancing, painting, wandering, pleasure for the sake of it. One thing that I was exploring this year was going to different types of art stores and just seeing what types of projects caught my eye. I walked away with little canvases and paint and had lots of fun painting. I walked away with pastels and a scrapbook or script book to do that. And it actually has created a lot of fun and joy for me. So you don't actually have to know, you don't have to have a plan. You just have to have an idea and go with it and see what happens. The next practice is redefine enough for yourself. Let enoughness be a feeling, not a finish line. And remind yourself that you are enough just by being you. So one thing that tends to come up with me with work and just like life in general is like thinking like, oh, did I do enough? Or did I say enough? Or was that enough? And consciously just stopping and being like, yes, Zoe, it was enough. Like more than enough. You can relax. That self-talk just brings me back to that state of letting myself feel into enoughness and wire that in. It's natural for questions like that to arise because we're humans and we're always wanting to excel and go above and beyond. But recognize when you might be attempting to take action from not feeling like enough versus, maybe just not even feeling like when you get down to the root of it that you need to take the action at all. So next, the final practice that I'm giving you today is to start leading with desire. Ask, what do I want? Not just what I need to get done. That question, what do I want? What do you truly want? That is a huge question, even though it's small and very simple. I encourage you to start using it more, asking yourself what you want. Like, for example, if you're a mother that's making dinner for all your kids, your whole family, let's say, ask yourself, like, what do I want tonight? Like, what do I actually want to cook? What do I actually want to eat? Of course, you might be feeding other mouths that have different palates and things like that, but start to give to yourself more. If it means cooking a different type of pasta for yourself, start to do that. Start to treat yourself and to just create more of that conscious effort to choose you in the moments where you can, or the moments where you might be on autopilot not to. So in conclusion, you are not here to just pay bills and meet deadlines. You are here to live deeply, fully, and richly. If this episode spoke to you, I would love to invite you into the Radiance Code. This is my 6-month women's coaching mastermind designed to help you embody your highest self, shed old conditioning, and come into full alignment with a life of fulfillment, ease, and radiance. You'll find the link for that in the show notes. And remember, survival mode kept you safe, but it's not your forever home. You are here to thrive. You are here to feel. You are here to shine. And until next time, take care of your precious energy, and I would love to see you inside the Radiance Code.